Well, good morning. You're watching Morning at NTV. Time to take note. On Fridays, see, I said I would be very serious about this. My colleagues started the hashtag #ConvertFlavia because they wanted me to read more Ugandan books. And ever since writivism brought that trouble, I said, why not? I'll take the challenge. And it's a big platform, so I thought I'd host Ugandan writers. We had Innocent Achan, and today, when I was reading about this person, there's a blog, Words with Michelle. They described him as someone with strength, resilience, positivity, and utter coolness. So this should be an interesting interview. Joining me is Mugabi Biencha. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me today.
You're not just a writer, you're a poet.
And an occasional rapper.
Occasional rapper. I've seen your work.
Oh, really? What did you think?
Yeah. I've spent the better part of my morning looking through your poetry and a bit of the music. And it's interesting. Your book is Dear Philomena. Philomena. I was asking you how to say, like, either way works.
Yeah, potato.
Given that we're Ugandans, we'll say it as we want. Philomena, Philomena. And it's a wonderful book. I know they can't really get this, but wonderful, wonderful. So we're going to figure out who Mugabi Biencha is. And this book, they can get it just as we start. Get it anywhere?
Yeah, anywhere. It's in Aristoc, Uganda Bookshop, Uganda Museum, Book Point and Village Mall.
No excuse, eh? So awesome. So now we get to know Mugabi Biencha. I was reading about your story. And later on, I'll ask you about what it means to have the freedom to write this book. Well, let's start with who you are.
Okay. So my name is Mugabi Biencha. I am a Nigerian-born Ugandan.
Hey,
interesting.
It explains this.
Exactly.
Yes.
They in fact even have a two Nigerian middle names, Olatokumbo and Mba.
Aye. But no Nigerian parents?
No, because like the Yoruba and Igbo, who are my parents' friends, in Nigeria, they adopted me into their tribes, and so
they gave you names. So it's Mugabi,
Augustine, Ateni, Olatokumbo, Mba, Biencha.
It's okay. You were clearly destined to be in the creative space.
And every single one of my names is from the African continent, including the Catholic one, which is a badge of pride that I have. Good. It would explain why you ended up telling the African story somehow.
So when I hosted the first write, I asked, because we first of all, it's on record, we don't have a good reading culture. But you know, when you're growing up, not many homes here in Uganda have parents who are telling them, grab a book, read a book. It's read your notes and pass your exams versus get a book and go into a certain world. So just talk to us about, you know, what it was like for you growing up, you know, maybe your community, your home. Was it more reading, more writing? What was that?
I was very privileged in the way that I grew up because my father worked for the UNDP. And so I didn't grow up in Uganda. So I was born in Nigeria. Then when I was 3 years old, my family moved to Sudan. Then when I was 6 years old, we moved to Bangladesh. Then when I was 9, we moved to Cambodia. Then when I was 13, we moved to Thailand. And
Mugabi, these are not, you said privilege. I was hoping to hear something else. But those are countries with unique stories as well.
Yes, definitely unique stories. And one thing that both my parents heavily emphasized throughout my life was that education is like, was the way that both of them got out of the disadvantaged and impoverished situations that they were in, and that reading and education for pleasure and, you know, for like academic purposes is like necessary and very, very highly effective. And so I grew up with like reading being the coolest and most amazing activity. Like when I was like a little, like 3 or 4 year old, I remember running up to my siblings and being like, hey, can we play? And they were like, no, we're busy reading. And I was like, what is this reading thing that it can be better than playing? So I ran to my mother and I was like, please teach me how to read. And she did. And then I just fell in love with stories and the world building and the like capabilities that reading and literature has. And so I've always been a reader because all my older siblings have been readers, and my parents, like on Sundays and Saturdays, like we just sit on the couch and just all read, you know? We wouldn't like watch TV, we just all be reading.
Yeah,
so that's very much raised.
We were raised playing outside, getting dirty. Books, it was a punishment.
We played outside too. But
I know, it was So you said your father worked with UNDP, which probably explains why you were everywhere.
Exactly.
Your mom?
My mom was a nurse originally. And then when she had, I think, 2 children by this point, then she became a homemaker. And then she transitioned into teaching and business later on in life.
Teaching makes sense why she was teaching how to read. So what kind of books, because if you are traveling to and moving to all those countries which clearly have unique stories, we've especially in history and currently, I'm wondering what kind of books you're being exposed to by your parents and your siblings. What kind of books are you reading?
All sorts of books, everything from Harry Potter to Things Fall Apart to like Isabel Allende, Lord of the Rings.
Okay, so it's
a mix of everything. Like both, you know, the books from whatever country or region that we were in, and also just whatever is really popular in literature at the time, and like a sort of age appropriate. But my parents didn't really police the books that I was reading because they were like, he's reading.
That's
so,
good.
Yeah.
You're a Munyoro, yes, and I'm wondering. Every time you talk to people, Ugandans who are in any space that whether it's creative or whatever, you wonder whether or how maybe their families or communities help them to keep some bits of home. Right?
Yeah. So one thing that both my parents did, which I was actually talking to my cousin about yesterday, they made sure that every year when we got our holidays from school, we returned home for at least a month.
Come back home.
Yeah.
Was it punishment for you?
No.
You liked it?
For me, it was fun because, like, you know, I got to run around with my cousins and, you know, like, play and, like, enjoy myself. But it was also, like, strange because I was home, but home is a place that never lived.
Yes.
And so my parents had this emphasis on we need to go back home, we need to go home.
Yes.
And I was like, yeah, this is home, but it really isn't home at the same time because
it's a place where you're going to holiday
Exactly.
versus it's your home.
Exactly.
And understandable. And do you think that was key? Because now that you're telling stories, especially African stories, Ugandan stories, do you think it was useful? Do you see its value now in your stories?
And now that it's later on in life, I definitely see its value, especially with the fact that now that, like, we moved back home, well, my mother moved back home, my siblings are still, like, doing their own thing in other countries, but my mother moved back home, and so now I have a lot closer tie to Uganda than I would have if we hadn't had come back home every year.
Okay, so you this is your first book, first of many, right? Good. But you were mostly a poet and occasionally a rapper. And I listened to your spoken words. I'm trying to also get into this thing. Use the right words. Your spoken word. And it's the kind of spoken word that's for a certain group of Ugandans, if I can say it like that. We haven't transitioned fully into most of the poetry that's here. But then I read up on why you ended up writing this book, and yours is a unique story. Let's start with, I'm not even sure where to start now, because you have a story of tragedy turned into something good. But I think we should also start with where Dear Philomena starts from. Who Philomena is. Because someone was like, girlfriend, wife? That's where all our minds are going to go. But who is Philomena?
So Philomena is the person I was supposed to be.
Okay.
Because when I was in my mother's womb, the doctors did an ultrasound and told her, congratulations, you're expecting a baby girl. And so she was over the moon excited because she'd had one girl and two boys and she wanted two of each.
Balance it out.
Yes.
Yes.
And then she had girl, boy, boy, and then she was expecting the second girl, so the girls are like at each end. And so she picked out the name Philomena for that baby girl because she's Catholic and she was like a fan of the story of Philomena in the Catholic faith. And then she went in to give birth and surprise.
It's a boy.
Yeah.
Just imagine that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then she ended up also having my little sister, so she got her second girl, and I'm the bonus child. But she's told me this story, and I've
so I was about to say, did she tell you this story over and over?
I've grown up with this narrative of Philomena is who you're supposed to be, and she makes like all these snide comments like, "Oh, you have such beautiful eyelashes; they're wasted on a boy."
Oh, mom, really?
But she's just joking.
Yeah. So then you get such a story, and then you add on to it another story, because I don't think from being told that story is where you said, "Oh, I'll write a book." Something else happened in between. Tell me.
Exactly. So in late 2014, unfortunately, I suffered from 2 back-to-back strokes, which led to a massive decline in my health. I was having like multiple seizures a day, ridiculous amounts of pain from head to toe, weakness, fatigue, headaches, migraines. I couldn't walk for the better part of a year. My legs were paralyzed. And I was going from doctor to doctor to doctor trying to get my health situation figured out, and every doctor I went to told me, we don't know what's going on with you. We don't know what's going on with your body. You're, like 22 years old, otherwise perfectly healthy. Strokes happen in people who are like 60 plus, who've been smoking heavily for years. You have none of the risk factors. But what we do know is your health is getting progressively worse, and that you're going to die by the end of the year.
No.
Yeah.
2014.
Yeah, well, I had a year left to live, and so by the end of 2015, I was supposed to die.
2018, you're here.
Yeah. Exactly.
What happened in between?
So read the book and find out.
There you go. So you heal and you're fine.
No,
Are you
actually,
okay now?
I'm not fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something that I try to stress in the book, is that, like, because there's like a very strong narrative of people overcoming tragedy and like getting better and like overcoming the things that they go through, but I haven't overcome. I'm still, like, right now my body feels like it's on fire from head to toe.
No.
I'm exhausted 24/7. I have a headache right now as I do 24/7. I had a seizure on Thursday, which like knocked me out for the entire day. And so one thing that I try to stress through my writing and through my book is that some things in life cannot be overcome. They can simply be managed. And this book was a way of me managing the mental and emotional side of things. Because what I did was I decided to flesh out a series of conversations between myself, Mugabe, and Philomena, the girl that I was supposed to be. Yeah, exactly. About that year of my life that I was supposed to die, but I managed to live through.
Okay. So if we read, well, we will, when we read this book, do we meet both of you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So you get to know about Philomena and how her life is going and what she's dealing with, and all the ups and downs. And Philomena offers a lot of humor in the book because I'm going through like a very depressing time.
Yeah. And she's happy?
Yeah, she's happy. She's living life, yeah.
So is it a conversation between the two, or one telling the story of the other?
No, it's a conversation between the two, yeah. And so you get to hear about like Philomena talks, Mugabe talks, and then also, like, in addition to the conversation, there's like social media posts and diary entries.
Oh, okay.
And so, yeah.
It's a story that the millennials can understand. But I mean, that's deep when you say that, because I mean, even by me asking that, someone is probably saying, what do you mean the two talk and the two meet and I get to meet the two? But just to simplify it for you, so this is Mugabe, who, just to recap for you, in case you've been staring at the screen like, I'm sorry, what happened? Who happened? So when his mother was pregnant with him, the ultrasound said, it's a girl. Only to go into the delivery room and given a boy. Now, at the time when the mother thought, oh, this must be a girl, she had heard a story of Saint Philomena and had decided, I like the story, and so when my daughter is born, that's the name. And that was reversed, obviously, when it was a boy, Mugabe Bianca. And then, of course, the mother told the story over and over. And when he suffered 2 strokes, you said, which, as much as we're told about overcoming issues, you're still going through it. You decided to tell this story, a story of who you could have been and then who you are. And so these two worlds are having a conversation, and that's what we meet in this book. So please get the book and get that story. But what I want to do today is probably tell you more about the writer, since it's really him in the book. That way you can get reasons why, and you can give perspective of the book. I like the narrative of overcoming. I personally like that narrative of overcoming because there are lots of things I have not overcome. And sometimes it's good to just see other people conquering things and you feel safe. But I guess it's different. Maybe we should look more to stories of people who are still dealing, because maybe that gives you reality.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it tough when you have to tell a story of not really overcoming but managing instead?
I don't find it tough because it's real and it's my authentic experience. And I find that the more I tell my story of managing and not overcoming, the more people come up to me and, you know, like say, oh, I'm in the same boat, or I feel the same, or like, thank you for saying that. And one thing that I enjoy about telling the story of managing and not overcoming is that if you overcome, and if you have that narrative, that makes it seem like people who are disadvantaged or disabled or, you know, struggling in some way, like they're not trying hard enough, which is not true. Because, like, if somebody's in a wheelchair, no matter how hard they try, they're not going to walk. But that narrative of overcoming makes it seem like you're just not trying hard enough.
Yeah, so it should be get out of the wheelchair and walk. That's what we'll describe as a success.
Exactly.
Versus how you're making this work should be your success. What in that form then is your success with your story?
My success with my story is honestly the fact that I'm able to, like, the fact that I was able to write this book. Yeah, because when I was initially writing it, I could write for 15 minutes every other day. And after those 15 minutes, my body would be so exhausted and so overexerted that I would go into a 3-hour-long seizure. And so I was like, this is like, you know, like, what's the point of this? Well, why am I putting my body through this? And so I decreased the amount of writing time, and then I gradually built up my capacity from 15 minutes to 20 to 25 to, and then like I got to a point where, you know, I could sustainably write, but like, you know, I still need to take my rest days. I still need to find my balance, which is right for my body. But the fact that I'm finding my rhythms, my natural rhythms better, and like not trying to exist within the world that's given to me, but trying to like carve my own path that's more accessible to myself and my disabled body. I consider that to be a success.
You are quite brave when you describe yourself. I was going through Twitter, and Mugabe has put a picture of himself, and he's saying, I think there's a hashtag disabled but cute.
Disabled and cute, yeah.
I said, who does that? Okay, but I mean, I guess it's good because then you open up the conversation. But you're so open about this.
And that's relatively new. Before I answer your question, I'd just like to say that disabled and cute is a hashtag started by this writer called Kia Brown. And so all credit goes to her.
Okay.
And she started it because she was noticing that people always view disabled people as, you know, like inferior or childish or ugly, you know, like it's like you're not seen as pretty or attractive.
The discussion is around your disability
exactly.
versus you.
Exactly.
Okay.
But in regards to like being open, I've come to embrace vulnerability as strength, and that's like one of my mantras, because I suffered from my first, so the two strokes that I talk about in the book are stroke number 2 and 3. I suffered from my first stroke when I was 9 years old. And so I've had 3 strokes so far, which is like very, very, very slim odds that I'm actually still alive and still, you know, functioning. But after my first stroke, I never wrote about it or really talked about it until the second stroke. And so the fact that I've had these 13 years of silence and 13 years of like repressing and keeping everything inside makes sharing and being vulnerable and open just such a release.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that you say such a release, but so you said you grew up in all these countries for a long time. You said 6 years you were in the US, and then you did Canada. And you're sort of coming back home.
Yes.
Home is different, especially it hasn't been really home for you. And I like that you brought up the conversation on disability. Do we get you? Do we understand you? When you come home, is it okay to tell your story? Do you feel like you're coming into a different world?
No, like, I feel honestly like home is different, just like anywhere else is different. You know, like the reactions I get when I'm telling my story here is a lot more reserved than when I'm telling my story in North America, but that doesn't mean it isn't heard. And so like if like I'm, you know, doing shows or like, you know, things in North America, people are usually cheering and being like, oh, you know, like.
What do we do?
Here it's a lot more like, oh, yeah. But then afterwards, once I get off stage, everyone walks up to me and starts telling me, oh my God, that resonated in me. And so they were hearing it. It's just that they're not as expressive initially while I'm on stage. And so like I find that the response is very, very similar once I get off stage. It's just while I'm on stage that there's a more reserved response, which like is, I believe, a respect thing, you know, like when somebody's on stage, you treat them with respect, whereas like in North America, it's very much like, you know, you cheer them on and you gas them up as a sign of like, you know, I enjoy what you're doing. Yeah, exactly. I
also think, like, especially here in Uganda, we're not used to, every time somebody has some form of disability, it's always a feel sorry, you know, for the person. They don't give you the same, you know, they don't talk to you like a human being. It's almost like now they need me to care more, they need me to respect them more, they need me to help them here. Whereas I feel like you are going into the world just like everybody else, like treat me the same as everybody else.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's talk about Dear Philomena. This is a year and something into this book. What's been the experience? It's
been amazing.
I'm surprised. You told me you wrote it 9 months?
Yeah. 9 months.
We were saying how writers take their time. They say I'm going to write a book and 5 years later, I'm still writing the book. How come yours was such a short time? Is it because you had sort of lived this story? So it was
partially because I'd lived the story, partially because I'd worked on another book before this, which sort of got muddled up along the way because I didn't really have a clear direction. And so I learned a lot from that for this book going forward. And like, I was trying to tell my story, and I was trying to tell it as thoroughly as possible. And once I just got into the zone, I just was like writing. And I wasn't even writing every day, you know, but I was just writing very, very effectively. And I got done with my first draft in 6 months. And then I took a break and didn't touch it, didn't do anything for 5 months. And then edits and publication was another 3 months. And so, yeah, it was, it just, once I got into the zone, it just came
went.
out.
So you did a book tour, you're going back on a
Yes,
book tour. Where are you going this time?
So this time I am going to the US and Canada. I'm going to do like 28 shows across like 20 cities. And then I'm going to come back and do something here in Kampala, go to potentially Kigali and potentially Nairobi also. Yeah.
So the response here versus elsewhere in the world?
It's been pretty much the same, pretty consistent, honestly. Yeah. Like when I was touring last year throughout North America, and versus when I like have done some events here over the past couple months. I also went to Kigali recently for an event there, and the response has been pretty consistent regardless of where I'm at.
Okay.
Yeah,
what kind of response are you getting? Is it a wow, what a story, or makes me think?
Getting a lot of people crying.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's a very emotional story.
Yeah.
So a lot of people crying, a lot of people telling me how my words have changed their lives or affected them in some way. Like one person who read my book came up to me and said that because I talk about depression at length in the book and mental illness, because I was struggling with depression, I still do, but I was struggling with it a lot more during the events of the book. And one of my readers came up to me and told me that reading my book helped her reconnect with her brother, who she hadn't talked to in 3 years. And they had been very, very close, but he is going through depression and she just didn't understand what he was going through. And so it put like a human face on it, and it helped her understand his perspective better.
Okay. It's two things. One, as we wind up, I will want you to share probably your, not a big life lesson, but just something you've observed through life that honestly you want to share with people. But before that, as we wind up, Mind Over Matter, page 182. I've talked about this depression here on the show a lot. But you talk about how someone was telling you, I think it's a doctor, was saying that it's all in your head. Depression is, or issues with mental disorders are starting to be discussed here in Uganda, and that people are trying to now understand that, okay, what I was going through is depression or anxiety. I didn't realize it was that. And I don't know how that conversation has been for you. Do you find that speaking out more has brought more awareness? People have found reason to be open about it?
Definitely. Yeah. Especially like here in Uganda, the depression conversation is definitely growing.
Yes.
But then there's also a very, very strong pressure of, like you can pray it away, or,
You're unhappy, pray.
Exactly.
Oh, man.
And like prayer is, like amazing, but
Yeah.
prayer should be used in conjunction to other,
Yes.
like counseling or, medication if you need it, etc.
That's true. So as we wind up, biggest life lesson, what have you observed through life?
It's okay not to be okay.
I like that. And especially since you said, we can preach overcoming, but it's okay to also just say, I'm trying, I'm managing. I've learned that too slowly, and I think this conversation with you has taught me that as well. I always want everything to be fixed. If it doesn't have a tick, we're not there yet. So thank you.
Thank you so
Dear Philomena from Mugabe, am I saying it Biencha? Is that
Bienkia.
Bienkia.
Yeah.
Is in Aristoc in most bookstores and online as well. You're on Twitter, so they can find you in case they have any questions. Where's the next sort of gathering here in Uganda where we can
actually
meet
tomorrow,
you?
tomorrow afternoon I'll be facilitating a discussion with the book enthusiasts of Kampala at Cardamom and Coffee in Kololo at like 3:45 p.m. So
nice. So there's your chance. Go meet him. And can they buy a book from you when they come?
I'll have plenty of books there.
Nice. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you for telling your story.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. That's it for Morning at NTV. Have a good weekend.